get started. Welcome to the Stanley Street Social Podcast, presented by no one, actually. Presented by Max, Campbell, and Alex. Welcome to the Stanley Street Social Podcast. My name's Alex Clements. I'm here with Tour Down Under ambassador, data man, Melbourne Football Club captain, Max Corn. Welcome, Max.
Hello, LB. Microphones could mean sponsor, is my gut feel, so I'm excited.
Actually, if you're on the YouTube, you'll see that Campbell and Max have fresh microphones down on the island in Victoria. So we're looking very professional. Welcome, Campbell.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks for shipping these quality mics in, and we're back to top level production quality where we deserve to be, despite not having a sponsor.
It's it would be nice that one day potentially we get back to Melbourne at some point. We're probably never going to get back to Stanley Street. I think that that house has moved on, but one day, hopefully, we're back in person, back in the microphones. But this is as good as we're going to get for now. Max, a crisis.
Yes.
Tour down under threw so much money at you, so much time, so much effort. Then the hammy went twing the week before. First of all, more importantly, how's the hamstring? How's the preseason?
And it wasn't quite a week before. It was like 4 hours before my flight. Like, it was phenomenally. It was the last drill in training. I must say, when I was complaining about my hamstring at training, about the fact that I had a big weekend planned, not many people really cared. That is where cycling's at a little bit in our country of Australia. But I was excited to get over there, and unfortunately, yes, hamstring pulled. That is now, what day are we now? That's 19 days ago as of today, and I was fully back training today. So maybe not going to Adelaide got me back nice and early.
Okay. Wait, did it feel sore in the run up, or what? What's the?
No, I've had a bit of an indifferent preseason where I've had a couple of little niggles going on, and that was actually the first session. It was like a bit of match practice, but the first session when I felt $1 million, and I hit my highest speed for the whole preseason, which isn't quick, but that probably might have been the reason why then my hamstring went about 10 minutes later after I hit my high speed. But I'm back feeling good again. So it was like a little 3-week break while the hardest part of preseason was going. So I missed out on the hardest part, but I think 14 years of doing preseasons keeps me in good stead.
And the rest of the squad, how are things shaping up? How are we looking heading into the season?
Yeah, good. I mean, I had Jake Lever in they call it recon now. It's not rehab. They've changed it. I'm not sure why. He was coming back from a little foot thing, but he's back. Clayton Oliver has another sore finger. He always has a sore thumb or finger, but he's back. It's a great time of the year. February, everyone is really licking their lips. Usually in about 2 weeks, we have our most numbers for a training session. Everyone seems to time it to perfection.
Nice. And did you call Stewie, or how did you break the news that you were unable to fly?
Well, Stewie was busy, to be fair, because I was trying to get up there on day 2. So Stewie was well and truly right into the TDU. To be fair, the women's race was on before that, so he was right into the TDU for weeks. So I was my liaison I was talking to, and the bad news. It was the first thing I thought of. I went into the change rooms, took my boots off, put an ice pack on, and text TDU. So I watched it on my couch, just like most likely you two. I'm not sure if you stayed up for it, Al. About time you got the bad time zone.
Yeah, shocking time zone.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good racing. That's the best TDU for a while in terms of attacking.
All right, that's enough.
Okay, sorry. Did I mention that the Tour Down Under was just a really well-run event?
Are we going to get some honesty out of you this pod, Max, considering that the tour was behind us, and you can really dip in now that you've probably got your check in the back pocket?
I think it's the highlight of the Australian summer. That's all I'm saying.
I think my people on the ground have told me that it's opened up a bit of a bidding war for the ambassadorship role across the Australian summer, and maybe even internationally throughout the year.
I mean, the only issue with the Victorian race that will remain nameless on this podcast at this stage is they wanted to be. I get to meet Cadel and have a coffee with him. No. That's a great race as well. But the TDU, I'm all TDU.
Cambo, your take on the TDU? An honest take, a realistic take, an unpaid, unbiased take. What were your thoughts on the race? Oh dear, we've lost him in a massive way.
Right on point, right on the time that he was supposed to talk.
As soon as we bring him in, crash.
Unfortunately, we're just going to leave it at the TDU was a well-run event.
Well, I guess we'll start then. We'll start with they started off with a prologue, which I really like the addition to the race, like a big in the prologue, and it rained in January. Yeah, that in Adelaide. Like what?
That's a disaster.
What are the chances of that?
I'm
just gonna mute Campbell and let him come back in a little bit.
He's gone anyway. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they weren't expecting it, which obviously they weren't, but the fact that it rained on the surface they were riding on, like it was literally the last surface that bridge, like I slip on that bridge when I am walking over it on the way to a game sometimes, like, and I'm walking. So yeah, it was gnarly, but then it made you think how good of the form Michael Matthews was in, because he was the only one in the rain that got anywhere near some of the times.
And to put you like some of those guys are thinking this is like early on in the season. I don't want to be binning it like the first, pretty much maybe their first race of the year prologue. That's where you lose multiple seconds in an event that's won by such small amount of margins that, yeah, for him to throw down that effort was like, oh yeah, Matthews is on, which was no surprise. It's what Luke Plapp said in the our first pod of the year was Matthews was the man, and he's on, and he's obviously out here for the first time in forever. So you'd hope he was flying.
Yeah, I had him written down post TDU and watching these few events that he literally is the form rider of the tour at the peloton at the moment. He hasn't won one, but I think he's the form rider.
Welcome back, Campbell.
Yeah, thanks. I'm having some network issues. For fuck's sake.
Do you want to? We've been talking about the prologue. Do you want to give us your thoughts on the TDU now?
Well, hopefully
if the line holds
my connection's stable. Yeah, I mean, it was just bizarre, isn't it? That the one time we have a prologue in the Tour Down Under, it rains for the first time ever in the Tour Down Under.
Already covered that.
Yep. Which sort of threw out our calculations and our timing to what we thought was going to affect the GC. In the end, it did have a bit of a role to play, with Yates losing that time to Jay Vine. But I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Didn't seem like it was a great spectacle, probably because of the weather, to be honest. But I didn't think it added a whole lot to the race, to be honest. Your thoughts? Have we covered this already?
I liked it. I like the concept of it, but yeah, I think the weather like ruined it, because the idea that you could get out there and watch it, like it's something you can easily consume. You think back to the days of the Herald Sun Tour when I was running down the Yarra down South Bank, and it was like there was people everywhere. It was big energy. It was a cool race to be in. I think a prologue in the city for a country that traditionally can't run races in the city is a pretty cool spectacle to have. So I think it'd be good. But yeah, the weather ruined it. But maybe played to Bettiol's strength of just being an Italian and spending multiple years racing the Italian amateur circuit in some filthy weather, throwing his body on the line, and he got the win.
Well, to be fair, he did. I don't think it may have rained for the back end of his ride, but he was racing on relatively dry surface, and it showed that he didn't have the legs by day 3. So it was a little bit thrown out, that TT. I was slightly disappointed the fact that maybe like Bettiol was going to win GC just based on a wet prologue. But then as we get into the next few stages, turns out these climbs like Corkscrew and Lofty did have a bit of a punch on them.
Stage 2, first bunch gallop. And was it Max? Were you talking about in the preview the Bahrain challenge, and you called Bauhaus as your boy, and he came through with the goods.
Yeah, well, apparently, who was it? Was it Cameron Scott? Is that who was going to take on Bauhaus?
I think that was Cambo's man.
It was, yep.
It just, it's I didn't talk on our WhatsApp or anything just to rub salt into the wound, Cambo, but I knew you were feeling that when Bauhaus went over the line, so I knew I didn't have to say anything. But Phil deserves to be the lead sprinter in that team.
Caleb came from a long way back. Matthews there in the mixer to keep himself, of course, along with the GC hopes as well, just picking up some little bonus seconds where this race been won before. Anything else to note from that bunch gallop?
Not really.
Cam Scott. I got the right team.
He got the right team. He's actually, to be fair, Phil Bauhaus, there's another unbelievable sprinter going around at the moment from Bahrain in Milan, who I think is a track cyclist from Ghana. So Bahrain are starting to build a little sprint setup, which is not really them. Caleb, the Aussie team or the Adelaide University or whatever they were called, didn't really get him in the best spot throughout the whole race. I think Caleb, we've seen, likes a little bit of support to get to where he needs to get to with about a kilometre to go, and then he doesn't need a lead out, but he needs that little bit of support to get him in the right position. And he started from too far back on all 7 rides that he had throughout the Australian summer. It was all that similar sort of feel to it.
Stage 2, which was supposed to be a bunch kick, I think, like Nizzolo's won here before. Caleb was almost penned in for the win with a nice little climb before the finish, and then the GC boys decided to light it up, and this was, I guess, the end for Michael Matthews with a mechanical at the bottom of the hill. It was all over. Cambo, did you expect Jay Vine and Yates to go wild up this climb?
No, I thought they were going to save it for the corkscrew, to be honest. But looking at the climb in isolation, it's a decent climb and you can do enough damage. But obviously the shape that Jay Vine is in, the horses that he's doing up that climb, it's it's impossible for people to stay on the wheel. A few people got on, and then when you look at the group that got away, like that's top level. It's a top level group, and they're all working really well together. Besides Yates, who was sitting on for good reason, who had Matthews in the back, couldn't quite come back. But it probably wasn't the stage where people thought that the GC was going to be sort of, if you weren't in that group, you couldn't win the GC. That was a bit of a surprise. And Caleb, again, he's got a real knack for winning best of the rest, doesn't he? I'd like to see some data on how many times he's won a bunch kick when there's a group already up the road. Obviously didn't have the Cadel there to bring that move back. He would have been a little bit disappointed with that. But it was cool to see Rowan Dennis win a road stage in that fashion.
I think he's actually the only, not the only one. I'm sure there was a couple of Adelaide boys, but one of the only big dogs that was a hometown in Adelaide. So that's good to see. I think they slept on him, the guys. I don't think they really necessarily thought he was going to be the fella taking the stage. I thought maybe Schmid or Yates were the two that were backing their sprints in, and Dennis just stole a little gap.
Just through pure strength from long range. Stage 3. Maxie's boy, fellow Bilbao, takes the victory. And I guess this is where this is Corkscrew Day, where obviously things started the J Vine that couldn't get halfway through Road Nationals lit it up on the Corkscrew and went wild and kind of established himself as a GC man. Max?
Yeah, this was a crazy day for mine. The three that get the 28. I think it was 28 or 30-second gap on the rest. They what we've seen were the clear three best throughout the whole tour. So I'm glad that happened. Pello Bilbao was obviously mentioned by me again. Another one I got right before the race from Bahrain. Mind you, I did tip Dion Smith for third. So there's a little bit of egg on my face there when he wasn't even the fourth best rider in his own team. They were riding for Corbin Strong, which is anyway, I know who Corbin Strong is now. But Bilbao is literally the 1 week stage man, the 1 week stage race specialist, and pops up for a stage. Bahrain with their second.
Vine very keen to take GC seconds on the rundown to do a bucket load of work for good reason too, as he kind of locked himself into that position after taking some just being there when he needs to be there throughout the whole week.
Did we enjoy the run-in to the left-hander into corkscrew?
No, it was horrible.
It's a tough watch, isn't it?
It makes no sense at all why they included it in the race. It's just so dangerous, so uncomfortable to see. Max is obviously going to have nothing to comment on this, but it's a terrible way to get to the corkscrew.
I mean, the right man won the stage. The right three managed to get a break. So I think it was a really well-designed corkscrew stage.
It's true. Yeah, we got the three best riders in the front. And Jay Vine, man, he looks so good on this climb. Like that at its steepest part is incredibly steep, and he was just absolutely monstering it.
Did you see?
Yeah, obviously was.
You go, sorry, Cambo.
He was just obviously thinking about the GC in the end and was happy to sacrifice the stage to your man Pello.
Did you see the after press conference from Pello Bilbao? When I say press conference, it was a microphone stuck in his face post the ride. And he was talking about trying to get back to, I think Yates and Vine were up the road going up corkscrew and he had to get back to them. And he said, yeah, Yatesy was going really strong and the UAE fella, he called him the UAE fella. Jay Vine has not got street cred yet in the peloton. I'm sure he does now.
Not yet.
Pello Bilbao has no idea who he was chasing.
I don't get it. Like, if you're a GC rider or, pretty much any rider, you probably know your competitors, especially someone that was in the front group the day before. Like, you're in the bus at the start of the stage doing your research on numbers and stuff. Like, it's bizarre that he didn't know his name, unless he was just like a real sort of alpha move, pretended he didn't know his name, just said the UAE guy, which is possible. Yeah, it was a nice little pickup from you there, Max.
Stage 4, kind of like uphill drag, bunch kick. Again, you'd think this was Caleb's stage to win with like a tough finish. But like we talked about, the UniSA team, he's in like reasonable position, but seemed just to get lost. And when that overview shot came back, you're like, well, he's way off the back. He's way out of the contention here. Meanwhile, Brian Coquard was on an absolute burner. He's come out of the French winter and cleaned up his stage 4 of the Tour Down Under. I don't know. Probably Max mentioned him on the preview, but I don't know if he really got much credit for coming out to Australia. Max?
He rode away from the peloton. I haven't seen that much. And the guys, I mean, obviously Caleb was in there, but the guys he beat, like a Corbin Strong, Michael Matthews, these sort of big guys that are big on massive horsepower, and he's rode away from them for his first win. How long have we got the days?
Well, it's his first World Tour win. He's won a number of races, but this was his first win at the World Tour level.
First ever World Tour win
by 10 lengths.
I've heard his name mentioned in every sprint preview for the last 5 years, and he hasn't won one. And then he comes out, and it's a good field. Caleb's in there. I mean, Caleb. Yeah, he's probably not right at his strengths with that team, but Brian Coquard, Cofidis, maybe a new year for Cofidis.
Definitely a surprise. I don't think we mentioned Coquard once in our in our preview.
I don't think we mentioned confidence once.
And why would we? At Two Down Under, confidence coming out here and getting a victory. But when Cockard does stuff like that, you think, geez, why isn't he winning 15 races a year at World Tour level? Like you said, Max, it's a decent sprint field. Yeah, it's not top level, but 10 lengths. Don't see it every day.
Some crazy things happen out here in Australia. Some crazy things. Stage 5, no Wollonga stage, Mount Lofty stage in substitute. What do you think, Campbell?
Yeah, it was a cool finale. Personally, I still like the Wollonga Sunday finish. I think there's a little bit of history there now, but I guess Richie Port's not there, so it's a good time to change the parkour. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure Maxi will be able to really spin the narrative of the race itself and what they want to say. But I think they got the finale that they were after. Two strongest guys in the bike race go to the line together. Some great names in that top 10: Yates, Vine, O'Connor, Hindley, Bilbao. So yeah, it was a good finale. And I guess Simon Yates saved Jayco's tour. I think we discussed that really a win was the only thing overall that was going to be satisfactory. But I guess the stage win on the final day sort of masks the slight disappointment with not winning the tour.
Are you not happy with Bling's points jersey?
It's not enough, is it?
I don't think do you reckon he's taken it on the plane back to Monaco? I reckon he might have left it
I
near
don't
the points.
think so.
It was, I mean, I'm slightly with you. Lofty, it's no Wollonga, but I'm happy with the change-up. But Brian Cockar is 6 seconds off the lead here. That shows maybe how hard Lofty was. We did see the burniers on the day before, but I don't necessarily think it was an incredibly tough climb. But in saying that, the two best climbers the two boys with the best legs throughout the whole 5 days by themselves, going a 1-2 up finish. So maybe I'm wrong, but it was good to see Yates. And I think Jay Vine sort of knew what he was doing. He was right into the finish line, get the bonus, get the seconds on Bilbao, and make sure he won red and do a lead out for Yatesy.
And like Cambo touched on it, like this is their only win for the summer for Bike Exchange after bringing out their A team of Yates and Matthews to come out of Nationals, TDU and Cadel's. Yates getting the kudos there just for picking him up one stage just to save save their summer.
Well, you're sleeping on the tour of Saudi Arabia where Dylan Grunewagen has gone and won a stage against a field of nobody. So you're sleeping on the tour of Saudi Arabia. They have won 2 races now.
Well, and that's their new co-sponsor, racing around the Saudi desert. So keeping the sponsors happy.
Well,
arguably a home race for them as well.
Sorry, keeping one sponsor happy. I don't know if Jerry would be that stoked about the Australian summer.
I don't think Jerry went to Saudi Arabia, is what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure he was at the TDU, so I would have been hoping. And they had the best legs. I mean, we are a very friendly podcast to one man, Lucas Hamilton, but he had the best legs of the Australian summer, and he wasn't able to go ever.
I guess that's
friend of the podcast.
Hey?
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast, Lucas Hamilton. He was flying though. That's good. That's good signs heading into, I guess, that next block for him of the Paris-Nices and whatnot, leading up to the Tour de France, hopefully for him. But I guess that's what happens when you bring the big name of that squad, Adam Yates, out to Australia, that you kind of have to play second fiddle to him.
Correct.
Cadell's race?
I just got a couple on the overall leaderboard. I wasn't expecting a minute gap to fourth. So that's, again, another big pump up to the Santos Tour Down Under. But Magnus Sheffield, don't sleep on him from Ineos. I think he's a really good rider who can genuinely TT. He rode a wet prologue and finished second in the prologue. And Intermarché, again, the top 10 here. Don't sleep on Barstrom as well, who we will then go into in the Cadel's race because he plays a pretty heavy role in the Cadel race as well.
Any other sponsors you want to thank or coordinating partners?
Well, Intermarché hasn't done much for me yet, but I'm not sure what they do. Do you have anything for me there, Alex? What Intermarché do?
No idea.
Sounds
No
like
idea.
a supermarket.
To be fair, it does sound like a
Yeah,
supermarket.
it does. Cadel's race the following weekend. The one-day stage race around
You're a bit of
Geelong.
a bit of a pseudo ambassador for this one, Albie. We've got Max on TDU and yourself on Cadel's.
Not sure how much
approach from you.
Not sure how much. Well, actually, yeah, I did like the race. I did like the race. I guess who was it? Mac Horton was the competition for yourself, Max, going as the face of Cadel Evans' Great Ocean Road Race.
Yeah, that fellow who swims 400 meters every 4 years. No, Mac Horton is a big, passionate Melbourne supporter, and I've had him on a rival podcast called Gus and Gorney. For those that want to listen to that as well to keep up with all footy news. Mac Horton's been on that, so I'm not going to knock Mac Horton, but didn't know he rode bikes.
And you went down to the race?
I was there, yes. That was the race I went to, which is hilarious in itself. But your mate Jason was able to get me ringside tickets. I was on the finish line down there at Cadel's, which is a great spot to be. Was able to get in the car with Cadel and Joel Selwood. Now that was a chat, and I played it. I played it interesting. I like to think Joel thinks I know cycling, but I'm not sure if he's a Stanley Social podcast listener. But I'm hoping he is. But Joel was asking Cadel some nuffy questions in the back seat, and I was in the front.
I'd love to be in that car for that.
Oh, and I was just waiting. He was talking about will the peloton do this, and what is a peloton? I think that even might have got mentioned. And then when we what's the crescent? What's the climb they go up?
Shalambra.
Yeah, Shalambra or something. As soon as we hit that, I started throwing out some watt numbers. I said, "Do you reckon they'll be pushing 600-700 here? Do you reckon they can get up here in the big chain ring?" And Joel's eye, he was gobsmacked. I had him right where I wanted him. And then Cadel was done with Joel and wanted to talk what's with me up the front.
Oh, Cadel's been on the Stanley Street Social podcast with you. He's been a fella. He's been interviewee while you've been co-hosting.
Yes. It was good to see Cadel again, and it was a well-run event, to be fair. And it was an interesting winner. Now that I've read up a little bit about the winner, I didn't know him too much beforehand. He actually wasn't shooting the lights out at TDU in the sprints, but it was an interesting winner. And his dad was like 3 meters from me, and everyone's waiting for Caleb or Michael to come over the line. Big Aussie contingent there. And all of a sudden, a Mayharofa from DSM gets over the line. I hear this biggest yell I've ever heard. I'm like, that must be that young Aussie Dinham that's come over the line. And it was Mayharofa's dad got in the ringside. I don't know how Jason's got him in the ringside seats up in the hospitality marquee, but he was in there and he was loving life.
So tell us about him. Did you meet his dad, first of all?
I met his dad. I met Simon Clark's dad and Mayharofa's dad. They were the 2 dads I met.
Both in the top 3?
Both in the top 3, and one of them was a whole lot more confident than the other, I must say. Simon's old man was saying some big things. He got over his COVID and he wanted to finish off an Australian summer. And Mayharofa's old man was here for the free piss, I think.
A real Simon Clark sort of day, though, wasn't it? It must be said.
It was, and it was a messy ride in. I got to see a crash pretty close up, which was a pretty gnarly crash, I might add. But we'll go into the race. But DSM, they were doing some weird things where a few guys looked like they had the best legs, but they were just pulling groups back, and they must have been riding for a Mayharofa the whole time.
They knew. They knew they're like a strong, like that kind of middle tier punchy climber in Dinham and Hamilton, and they were going. From what I could see, I tuned in when they got to the circuits. Was watching it on replay, but it felt like, I don't know. Was there anything to note before they got to the circuits?
Not Taco. Our boy Taco Vanderhorn went on a solo break. I felt for Keno at this point for his first call of the summer. Obviously, TDU, he sat out and did some special comments, which I think he's better than. If I have one little reply to TDU, I think Keno can potentially get into the commentary role at TDU. He does the Tour de France, so sure he can do TDU. But he managed to, and he unfortunately had to call Taco Vanderhoorn through those lonely streets of Torquay. So I do feel for him.
Was Robbie there with him?
Robbie was there. Yeah, Robbie flew out that night and then was actually commentating the Tour of Saudi Arabia the next 2 days. I've been watching way too much cycling.
Cambo, when they hit the circuits, what's your take on those laps around Shalamba Hill or Crescent?
Well, I just want to just back over where we've just come from, just on the commentary piece. It's an absolute crime that Keno is still in the in the warm up sort of laps in the pre-game. Like, yeah, I think.
Well, if you want to back over it,
Phil is an exceptional commentator, and he's still got the best voice.
Don't say it.
He's got the best voice in cycling. There's no doubt about it. But his head might have just gone for the pressure moments. I think he would probably be more suited for the pre-game where it's nice and relaxed. You can just chat casually. When it's all happening in the finale, might be a little bit too quick for him now.
Could you imagine if Phil Liggett and Carlton Kirby called a race together?
Just to be clear, there's definitely still a role for Phil, but maybe it's not in the calling in a final.
It's for the early, like hearing Phil over the mic is comforting. It's what you're used to.
Absolutely.
It's what you love to hear.
You feel safe.
Yeah.
It provides safety. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, Keno's definitely done his time in the trenches. And anyway, it's nice to see Robbie and Keno back in Australia together a little bit, and hopefully in the future we can see a little bit more of those two together.
The first real movement, Elbow, was an Intermarché and Quick Step rider going off the front. It was sort of the best part. There was a group of like 30 that got off, and then it got brought back together. I was in the car at the time that a group of 30 went off, and Cadel said, these guys don't even worry who they call over race radio. They're not getting through. So I didn't even worry, but apparently Caleb was in that initial break and Michael wasn't. So it was advantage Caleb. But then it all sort of got brought back together.
I think Caleb was flying. Like if you look at the way that he made all the moves, made all the splits that he needed to be in, he did everything right and just got lost in that final bunch kick. But yeah, I was like, it was an animated race, like the whole way around. You like people come back, people going forward, people going back. You know what was going on, and then it came down to the line of catching the guys with under the last kilometer, and it was a messy bunch kick as it seems to always be. And normally, someone I guess a bit out of the blue comes through for the victory, as they did this year.
Well, and the last 5K, I think, were messy. So UAE were dominating the race. DSM rode at the front for Taco then to try and bring back the break, which was, again, amazing foresight. And then UAE were doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the circuit. They had a very strong team with George, Bennett, Jay Vine, Mark Hershey, these sort of guys. And Jay Vine said that himself. I think he said, we knew we had the best 5 riders on paper, so we just tried to ride hard. And then, Bystrom, who we just talked about from Intermarché, and Schmid, who also rode a good TDU, they got off the front and they looked like they were actually going to stay away. At one point, I think there was like a 10-second gap with a kilometre to go. It was a crazy last K. Then Luke Plapp was probably the reason why that break got caught, because Plappy decided to go for it, which is fair. Ineos, Ethan Hayter hasn't shown a great bunch sprint in him, and Plappy's in that sort of middle land where they're not sure if they're riding him for GC or riding for sprints, so he sort of just went. Ethan Hayter was then caught up in the crash, which was sad. And then Mayherofa.
Comes through the goods.
there's something about the Cadel's race that does provide a surprise winner, and as the favorite ever won here, someone that's gone, you know what, bang on favorite, he's going to win. I don't think so. I think we've had Cadel, we've had Mearsman. Did he win the first one? Like, there's just been a lot of interesting sort of types and different types of riders too, which is cool, by the way. A race where the parkour is the same, but different riders can win. So that's something that I do like about the Cadel's race, is the unpredictability of the winner.
Maybe a challenger even to the greatest bike race in the Australian summer.
It could be.
Could be. Could be.
There was a real weird thing in the last K. AG2R were doing the pacemaking to bring back Plapp for, I think, their sprinter Godon, who I never heard of. And I love my mediocre European, especially French and Italian sprinters. He was actually the fella who literally ate a lot of concrete. Like, he fell off his bike. So AG2R, a bit disappointed in that front. And Ethan Hayter was the other one. And I noticed his brother crossed the line in tears about 2 or 3 minutes after the peloton, crossed the line and then asked the race director if he could ride back. And then the race director asked me if I'm going to allow him to ride back. That's how it sort of worked at Cadel's. I said, yeah, sure, he can ride back. And he was bawling his eyes out. So I'm hoping Ethan Hayter's okay. I haven't seen his name on any sort of paper since. But yeah, his brother was bawling his eyes out.
From the crash?
Yeah, from the crash. So he must have rode past Ethan, seen the state he was in, then kept riding. Must have been that bad to make sure he crossed the finish line for 76. Not sure how many UCI points there were there. And then rode back to the ambulance that was putting him in.
Is there anything further that you can share, Max, from your experience in the car with Cadel around the course?
There was a couple of times where it was sort of a bit of silence. We're looking at the outside because there's only one circuit to go after we finished. Obviously, they didn't want me in the. Cadel didn't want to be in the car for the last circuit because he'd missed that circuit, and then there's no point of him being in for the first two because there's no action going on there. So we had the prime car. There was a couple of awkward silences, and Cadel just looked out the window and said, "I was hoping for a bigger crowd than this." And me and Joel just had to sort of, Joel sort of broke the silence and said, "It's all right. We played in front of no crowds during COVID." I don't think that helped, Joel. But yeah, but then at different times there was enormous crowd. So I'm sure he might have been happy at different points.
Were all the Geelong boys down there? Sam Menegola?
Yeah, Menegola does a lot of riding.
Friend of the podcast. Sure you remember as well.
So I actually want to ride with Menegola at some point. He looks like he'll punch out some good watts. So I know it might make that happen, Elbow.
When he was on the podcast, he was saying that he was riding like weekly after games, like all through season.
It's certainly a lot of people do. A lot of people do it. Like I said, to my correlation with doing hamstrings, I've just done another one. So I probably should steer clear from the bike a little bit, but I'm riding to work. I'm riding to train. So I call it work. I ride to training, which is like a 12-kilometer ride. So that's as much as I'm doing at the moment.
Off to work.
Off to work.
Off to the office. Any final comments on the summer before we go through the 64 other races that have been on over the last 2 weeks?
I mean, the only thing I can really give you is Dion Smith finished in the top 10 at Cadel, so I was onto something. He was doing a lead out for Hugo Page, who actually looks like a good sprinter as well. I just thought I'd clear up my Dion Smith tip because it didn't end well, and I probably won't tip him for anything ever again.
Did you sniff out any value over the summer?
I have post Australia.
Not in Australia.
Yeah, not in Australia per se. I backed Jay Vine for the Nationals, and that was the only race he decided to pull out halfway. Yeah. And then I almost crossed him off my list because I said he didn't have legs, and that was one of the silliest things I've done.
What do you say? You got to back the legs, not the name, though?
Yeah, you got to back the legs, not the name. And I bet when there's no February is quite hard because there's no legs, so you're backing names. So it's a little bit harder. So I go against everything I talk about with my motto. Back the legs, not the name.
February definitely hasn't disappointed in terms of cycling's race calendar just being a shambles. And for some reason, there's just new races that pop up left, right, and center every year to ensure that every race is stacked on each other, and no one's got any idea of what's going on. And people are at completely different events all over the world.
I love this Albie's big axe to grind every.
It does my head in every February. It's like, well, why have we got so many events on now? The Tour of Argentina is a world tour event. It's all happening.
I've got a lot of questions as someone that's a first-time February watcher of cycling outside of Australia. One is, why does Mallorca have 4 back-to-back one-day races instead of a 4-day stage race?
Is it not a stage race?
No, it was 4
No,
back-to-back
1.1s.
one-day races.
Oh, then there's another Spanish race as well. That's a stage race.
Yeah, it went, let's say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, over 4 days, 4 different races that had very similar fields. Maybe Alaphilippe did the first 2 and not the last 2 or something like that, but very similar fields, all back to back in the same little island off the coast of Spain. Yet it's not a 4-day stay. I found that weird. I found it weird that Spain was having cycling. I thought it was a good chance to maybe get some subcontinent, some countries in the Southern Hemisphere, like Argentina, a couple of races. I'm not sure if you tuned into Argentina. They did put out the big guns in Carlton Kirby down there. They actually had a horrible ability to cover the race from both a visual and audio point of view. In fact, this is how much I did have a little side bet on, so I had to make sure I watched this in particular stage. But it had 40K of helicopter vision of the desert because they couldn't find the peloton, and Carlton Kirby commentated through it. It was phenomenal. And then the commentary. Sorry, I'm going on a little rant here. Kirby, who is our boy, remember, commentated from the finish line camera of the sprint for the last 1.5 kilometers. So this finish line camera zoomed in as much as they could for 1.5 kilometers away and called the sprint finish. And you know how our man Kirby couldn't call Caleb Ewan if he was watching it live on Caleb Ewan's GoPro. Imagine how he's going from 1.5 kilometers away off the finish line camera. It was phenomenal. I just don't watch the Tour of Argentina. That's it's done.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Is it Tour of Argentina? That's where they had like 6 sprints in a row and then just like one gradual uphill climb that was like 4% for like 25 kilometers.
Yeah, which was won by our boy, the drug cartel, Lopez.
What's his team now? What's his team called?
Medellin. Is he right from Medellin?
The Barley Nine? No. What's his team name? I forget his team name.
But he looked in like he was flying on that final climb, obviously.
So they've got records up that climb, and again, I love my data, and I've got times. I'm gonna get near the truth, but not quite the truth. But it tells a good story because I don't have the numbers in front of me. But let's say they've done that climb 7 times, and there's names like Chavez and Quintana who have done it in 35 minutes. Lopez on that day beat him by 2 minutes. Like on all-time rides up that hill, unless there was one of the best tailwinds of all time, Lopez is in the best form he has ever been in.
To the Times credit, have you seen like he had it looked like a Tour de France. It looked like Team Sky in 2012 going for the Tour de France victory coming into the climb. They were stacked like 7 guys stacked on the front doing a full peel for Lopez on a 4% climb. They were flying up there.
He then took out the TT Colombian champs ahead of, like, Martinez is a good TT rider on the Ineos gear. So that's a good effort. But then lost to Chavez in the Colombian road race. So maybe not amazing legs. But speaking of Colombian road race, that was they should have a Tour of Colombia, not a Tour of Argentina. Like that place was bonkers.
Yeah.
Well, they used to, Albie, a few years ago. I'm not sure whether it was the Tour of Colombia or it was some race in Colombia. The crowds were just incredible. Like nothing else you've ever seen before. It was great, but I think COVID may have spelled the end for that race, unfortunately.
like Max touched on, if you put some structure to this season and moved out of the European continent for later on when they have their big stages, it would make perfect sense to have one race at a time, and one of them being in Colombia with like those ridiculous crowds. And they love like the profile that those athletes have there now with Rigo and his fellow countrymen. Like it makes complete sense.
There's also a couple more races we shouldn't sleep on over this little period. Welsford was in one of those races. Welsford has beaten Jakobsen and Gaviria, and there was one other
Bennett.
Good sprints, and Bennett, who, to be fair, those three all won a stage as well. But Welsford's
Is that at Argentina?
Yeah, that was in Argentina.
Some won.
Welsford's won two. They were like the best sprints out of the five, in my opinion. So that guy can ride. I don't know much about him. You got anything for me?
Former track, like did two rounds, 2 Olympic cycles. So he's been on the track for the signed 8 years, and then has signed pro with DSM last year. And I think there was never any question about like his power. He's like, you see him, he's built like a brick shit house. He's a monster. But there was, I guess the main question was like, how would he go on like the long road stages? And we've got our answer.
Yes. Well, we don't know because the first 130K of the stage, they'll show in the forest. So he did sprint well at the end, though. A couple more in that exact race. Jakobsen and Morkov looked like they hated each other. So there's a bit in that going forward.
And did you see that Jakobsen dropped Morkov's wheel? Like,
yes,
the unthinkable. Why would anyone leave that wheel?
Correct.
So maybe there's a little bit of tension there.
Gaviria from Movistar, I kind of like that. That's weird. That's cool. That's going to get him some UCI points. Did you see?
Did he get a win?
Aaron, yeah, he won a stage. Now I've got all my races mixed up. So Bernard Gamay won a race for Intermarché at a stage race that literally just finished. The Rui Costa won overall. You had to bear with me, but Movistar, behind Bernard Gourmet's stage win, had second, third, and fourth. Garcia Cortina sprinted Aaron Buru for second and third, and it was unbelievable Movistar fashion.
That's that. And you know what? They're forward thinking. They've got a 3-year cycle now because obviously the points had such a big impact on the world tour. And they're thinking about the 3-year cycle instead of everyone else just panicking in the last year and sending everyone to every race on the planet. More importantly, did you see Ciccone had yellow up until the last day?
Yes, I did see Ciccone had yellow.
And he lost it to Rui Costa on a 2K flyer from the finish.
Rui Costa just rode away from a peloton full of hopefuls. There was like 10 blokes within like 10 seconds in this race, including my boy Pello Bilbao, who I may or may not have backed the legs and not the rider because he had legs. He just rode away from them. They're all like, oh, but he's 20 seconds off. He won't get that. And he got 30 on them. Rui Costa.
And your boy Aramsman as well was with him. But more importantly for Ciccone, that means that he will be going for GC again this year. Now he's shown that he can back himself in instead of going for stage races, for stage wins.
But we are looking too far into it, in my opinion. Intermarché is currently leading the UCI. Jumbo-Visma would get relegated if we stop today. So the big guys aren't here. Pog is going to UAE, which starts in a week, and that is the real big guy. And the other two big guys are currently doing the best television you will watch was it in Belgium or Netherlands? The cyclocross.
The cyclocross. I don't know.
I think it might have been Netherlands because I heard MVDP's old man created the course and there's a bit in that. So it must.
Yeah, I did get that.
To be fair,
that's good.
If I was playing Western Bulldogs in the grand final and they decided to put it in Footscray, I would be also slightly concerned about that. So Wood had every right, but that is a spectacle. Van Aert, Van der Poel, blitz the field, sprint finish, cyclocross world champs. It was good to watch. Cyclocross season was good to watch.
You talk about footage from the helicopter for an hour. Meanwhile, over at this race, we've got these two boys going hell for leather, and then down the back straight. Don't know if you've seen the footage, Cambo, but they ran a drone through like the back technical section, and it's just following them through the back corners, and it is spectacular.
I haven't seen the footage.
Maybe the first investment in TV coverage in cycling since 1985. It was good to see, and like it worked. It worked so well. The race is an hour long. Everyone's out there boozing. There's Belgians or Dutchies or a blend bit of both, depending on what where the race was actually held. But those guys are on. I just can't believe the condition those two are in already. Like Van der Poel's just going whack, 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 just from the get go for a full hour, and we're talking at the start of February. It's wild the kind of nick they're in.
It seems a bit old school. You need to be quiet in the summer. Like Wout van Aert is literally just always at this like top level, and you guarantee that he's going to go roll into the classics, roll into the Tour de France, all in this top nick. So that's why they're paid the big bucks, I guess.
I saw somewhere saying they'll definitely be competing against each other at 4 out of the 5 monuments. So I'm presuming they just both haven't confirmed for Lombardia. So they could be all 5 if they go the whole way to October. So it's going to be, again, that unfortunately means they both don't win because they'll be marking each other. And who's your boy who won Milan San Remo a couple of years ago, Elbow? He'll just pop up and win again.
My boy.
The 50-year-old. The 50-year-old.
My boy.
Speaking of Milan San Remo, the last name I want to touch on, who's had a rocking start to the summer.
Just before you touch on him, Max has come into season 7 of the Stanley Street Social Podcast with hot form. He's in good.
I haven't slept. I've been watching night races. The Argentinian race was actually a poor time slot. Finished, it was like a 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. I had to give up training. I want to talk about Arnaud Delis, who is a Belgian rider who has started like a house on fire, winning sprints that Van Aert and Van der Poel would win. Similar punchy type stuff. Matched wheel for wheel with Pedersen the other day, who we know what Mads Pedersen can do. Showed he had legs because he won a TT, Mads Pedersen, and just out-sprinted him. This guy has Milan San Remo written all over him. The only issue is his Lotto destiny, which is our boy Caleb, and probably Philip Gilbert and Tim Wellens again for some weird reason. I think Tim Wellens has now left the team. He's on UAE. Philip Gilbert is probably still riding just for the sake of it.
Feels on his 4th year of retirement.
So I'm not sure if they take both Caleb and Delis. I'm not sure what the situation is with that, but they both look like they could win. They need to take a strong team, Lotto.
What are you doing if you're the Lotto manager, Cambo?
Well, I did have a look at Delis' results sheet from 2022, and I think he won 7 or 8 races last year.
He single-handedly kept Lotto in the UCI points title fight.
Yeah, I mean, you go to his result sheet from last year, and there's a lot of single-digit numbers on the results. Like I said, 7 or 8 victories, always there or thereabouts. And he's only 20. So, I mean, you take them both for sure, and just let him go free. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of responsibility for Lotto in this race. But yeah, it's exciting to see another young Belgie just come onto the scene and just be torching everyone. But he's definitely the talk of the town at the moment, and I'm sure Maxi will need to get in on that value before his odds come in. May have already.
So that was in Spain as well, I'm pretty sure. So that's another little tick to Spain for getting some winter races in. Going back on the Mallorca races, they had snow. Like, why are they riding in Spain? It doesn't make sense. I just want to talk about that the stage race that was in Spain that Rui Costa won. Do you know they didn't have a sprint finish? They had the one that Gamay got to, but the real sprinters didn't get there. Matteo Moschetti went for he's now in a Pro Conti team. to a Pro Conti team, and they took him to the lumpiest stage race I've ever seen, where Christoph also went and didn't make it to a finish line. They took Marchetti. He struggles to get over the Anderson Street Hill at the Tan.
What's the team called? Can you recall?
Oh yeah. Oh, I can get it. Hold on.
I think it's probably time they brought Max in as maybe a little bit of a consultant as to how to manage our boy Moschetti and where to send him. And I think there's maybe, as well as the income that you're going to be generating this year from your Tour Down ambassadorship and probably many other races throughout the year, maybe a little bit of a consulting fee could be charged on the side as well.
I'm trying to work out how I potentially get my way onto a team bus at some point. And I'm thinking I go down the leadership space. Don't know how that's going to work because I've potted every cyclist on here. I haven't potted every single one. I love the Aussies. I've potted the ones that I know I'm never going to have contact with.
So you'll be working for Bike Exchange.
So I'll be working for Bike Exchange at this stage.
They could do with some leadership right now. It feels like they could maybe have a tall ruckman to come in just to like get the boys moving.
Boys, I know what it's like to push those watts. I don't. I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't
add. Milan Sanremo's March, in terms of Feb coming up, UAE Tour and I guess, kind of the two big ones. And I think Oman's in there too, which I noted before because Cav's going there. Not sure if we touched on this on the pod, but obviously Cav's got a ride. He's working for Astana.
Do you see how it broke? Could be one of the best leaks of all time. He was getting picked up to go to the airport at 4 a.m. by the Astana team car. That is stiff that someone's up at 4 a.m. and taking a photo of Cav getting in the back of the Astana team. And Astana, send a no-branded car if you don't want the Cav story getting out.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on the Portuguese little tour that's happening in there as well. In amongst it, I do know Jai Hindley's going there, so I'm presuming that's got some sort of prize pool. But really, we're waiting for Umloop and the UAE to see how Pog has returned.
Cambo, what are you looking forward to this month?
Well, I guess it's Umloop. Like opening weekend in Belgium is, it's really the start of the cycling season. To be honest, I know that we've had Tour Down Under, got 100 races in February leading up until opening weekend. But, when you get to Umloop, you're in Belgium and it's World Tour, it really feels like the cycling season has begun. So that's probably the one that I'm looking forward to. And then they sort of come thick and fast after that. Strade Bianche, Paris-Nice, San Remo, Torino, and then it just rolls. So enjoy the quietish period now because it's going to come thick and fast in a couple of weeks.
Just another thing not to sleep on, Cambo. And unfortunately, I've been sleeping on it this whole time doing this podcast. Is the driver of the car with me, Cadel, and Joel Selwood was like a helper outer for Team Bridge Lane, has been around Australian cycling for a while. I actually forget his name. But as I got in the car, he said, "Oh, you know the two Tassie boys from Stanley Street Social?" I said, "Yeah." And Alex, don't take this as an insult. You were mentioned with your cycling ability a tiny bit. But geez, did we get into the nitty-gritties of how Campbell didn't get to the next level, what happened, the injuries, how good he actually was on a TT bike. And I've been sleeping on it. I didn't realize I was speaking to the modern day Philip, not the modern day, the olden day Philip Garner. Like you were the king.
I wouldn't go that far. Was it Nunny? Was it Greg Nunn?
It was Greg Nunn.
How do you view Campbell now, Max? How have your views changed to your co-host?
Can I have like your best? Give me like a 10K flat TT. What was your average wattage?
Well, in the world's TT, I don't know what a 10K one, but the world's TT I think was around 390 for 40 minutes at about 72, 73 kilos.
And where'd you come in that?
First.
Did I set him up on one elbow? He looked at me with disdain.
Number one. We need
does that give me more street cred in your eyes, Max? Just hearing that, my name is still getting thrown around the streets.
I honestly, I thought, like, I knew you both rode, and I knew you both rode at a very high level, but I didn't know 10 years on that I'd be chatting about how good you were with some guy I wasn't expecting at the Cadel race. So, I mean, that's great to hear. It really was. And Elbow, you weren't, I mean, don't take it as an insult. You were mentioned.
I'll take a mention. I'll take a mention. Good energy around the bus, Can we get the jersey on the back of, like, behind you, Cambo, for future pods or something? Like, I see we've got a map there, but I think maybe the world champ jersey would be fitting.
Yeah. Well, I've got the blinds man coming tomorrow, so the room will be a little bit more tidy in the coming weeks. So there's the map of the Alps behind us, but I'll make sure to get my world championship jersey, and also my yellow jersey from the Tour de l'Avenir is also framed, so I'll make sure I'll get that in the back as well.
I feel
just
like that's
one more time on what that tour was called.
Tour de l'Avenir.
Tour de l'Avenir. Okay, yeah. Thought so.
Do they say that's the Tour of the Future?
Didn't work out to be the Tour of the Future that year.
Who won that year?
Well, it was actually Lopez, actually. So still very relevant.
Lopez. Where was it? Was it in Indonesia, that race?
No, France.
In the Alps. France. Okay. Sorry. I actually do know which race you're talking about, but I can't wait to watch this Lopez space.
Mike's Cambo's jersey in the background. I think the pod's really starting to come together in season 7.
Yeah,
I can potentially get
my TPG internet to just hold up as well. That'd be good.
Stuart O'Grady has I've just got a signed jumper of his Australian national champion jumper as well that I can potentially hang up somewhere here, just next to my Santos stuff. So yeah, I mean, I have trying to do a 12-month sort of plea for them to rehire me. I don't think they will, because like I said, they got a lot of slack for getting an interstate to come across to Adelaide and take the taxpayers' money, which I dare say I wasn't taking any money. I was doing it as a love for cycling, and I didn't. And the only reason why I couldn't fulfill my duties is because I was interstate with a hamstring injury. So I don't think that went down well with the taxpayers' money. But I'll get Stuart O'Grady's just hanging on this wall as well.
It's obviously going to be tricky, but it'd be really good if we could work on like for example, imagine if you were the Umloop ambassador, bringing that to Australia. I could just come over for the weekend with you. We can just hang out in the VIP. That'd be really good. It's obviously going to be tricky with the season, but maybe down the track sometime. Lombardia ambassador.
I've got a weird little niche. I've got Lombardia or the last 3 stages of the Volta. That's really all I can really get to. So, to be fair, that's all I can get to with the TDU as well. Anyway.
Thanks, Max. Thanks, Cambo.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks as always, you guys.